So now I'm going to take another swing at this because there's a lot of information in here. So far we talked about fraud, misrepresentation, and all of those different things that led to us canceling out the security deed that was letting someone else benefit over our financial asset that has already been traded, because we know we did the QSIP search results, so it's already been traded on different platforms and we got the evidence of that. That's why we did the rescission on the mortgage contract, which is one thing, and then we put the affidavit of beneficial ownership and title over the promissory note, which is the asset, if you will, the financial asset, and the lien on that financial asset is where money is created from. That's what the mortgage represents. It represents a form of a lien on the note, which is where payments and different things come from under the mortgage, and so now you understand how. So anyways, then we talked about the affidavit of beneficial ownership on the note and the recording of that asset in the county, so that you can get a book entry, which happens to be a real estate transaction. And I have those laws in other places. You can look at those laws. And more importantly, the now that affidavit now, and we also talked about this rescission of signature on the deed also should be, you should give notice, actual and constructive notice of that to the servicer, as well as whoever is the holder of your loan, which once again, I think you can find that out by Googling all the words and all the numbers on your promissory note. But especially the words, seeing what federal organizations pop up, maybe doing some FOIA requests or requesting some information based off of that loan number and finding out who that organization is, who their officers are, directors, which of their directors have professional liability insurance, officers of the United States, and then make them perform using forms, OMB forms, which are forms for performance, OMB. The thing is about OMB forms that I want to share with you, and if somebody has some more in-depth information with anything that I'm talking about, send it over. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate it. But the OMB forms, they're very powerful because put them in the right person's hands, and those people don't get to make a determination. To ignore an OMB form or just throw it away is like fraud. It's several violations under Title 18 crimes, federal crimes, and felonies. So you can't, the right person working for the federal government can't just throw away OMB forms. You understand? So but you still have to know something to enforce what it is you're doing. So take that into consideration, and now you may see how, if it's written in their code that a party involved in fraud or forfeiture is a party involved in fraud or forgery forfeits all title and interest, right? And then we're talking about guarantees and collecting under the servicing of the note. And then if we have proof to a director or officer of that agent in the form of an affidavit that is on the record that can't be rebutted, because remember, the government is acting under a different sort of law than the corporations are. And the corporations don't pay attention to affidavits, they pay attention to certificates, but the government does pay attention to what is written on the record. So there's just some things to consider about how effective these things can be. So remember, this is an OMB form with a medallion stamp, signature guarantee. Right? Let's look at that. Now, I was going to tell you about the significance of a signature guarantee, but we will kind of go back to that. Let's see where we were. So we did rescission, the affidavit of beneficial ownership, then we filed a UCC on it. That's the first thing we looked at. Let's look at it one more time real quick, because this is the registering of the asset and securing the title of that asset in trust, because if you don't do it in trust, you're going to have all kind of problems, and you're not going to, and all the custodians and intermediaries, transfer agents and paying agents, they're going to dishonor what you're doing because you're not operating in trust. It's built into the system to not let you through if you're not operating in trust on all different forms and operations of law. So this is a registration of that asset. It just reflects the other stuff. UCC, electronic chattel paper. It's an uncertificated security now. So it's an uncertificated security, and we can still assign certificates of beneficial interest. So now that we registered this, why do we want to register this promissory note? What are we trying to do by doing that? What we have set up here is a bank account. This is a bank account, right? This is the account owner right down here. These are the monies or the assets or the collaterals that's held in the account, right? Who's the beneficiary on that account? All banks have beneficiaries. You just usually you usually don't really know that but here's the beneficiary of the account. You understand what I'm saying? But anyways, I'm just kind of showing you what's going on here. This is an account. So how would I assign that, right? I have to write it. How do you assign when you assign money outside of your bank account, right? That's why another thing. That's why there always has to be a value in here because this is electronic chattel paper. This is a security just like a check, just like a money order, just like a promissory note, just like a bond, right? So there has to be a value involved. And how do you assign this interest? How do you assign money out of your check account? You use an assignment instrument called a check or a draft, and you write it out and you send that through the mails or commerce or however. And when the other party gets it, what do? They do book entry. They don't do a book entry, but they input the notes and they do entry. The reason why I'm explaining it like this, I could explain it differently, but I'm trying to show to you that whether you write a check, whether you do a Fed wire, or whether you do a UCC3 assignment of interest, right? Let's look at this real quick. We're going to go to this CFO discharge process, which you start out here with the UCC3 assignment of interest. This is just like a check is what I want you to get you to see, except for a check is treated as a cash item by the Federal Reserve Banks, and they process them at their cash processing centers everywhere. So, but all that's going on is it's still just an instrument to pass information, who the payer is, where the from account, where the to account. No monies go from point A to point B. It's just instructions that get transferred on a check. It's just instructions that get transferred on a draft, instructions on a bond, instructions on a UCC3. Don't get confused about the instrument. No ones and zeros are going anywhere. There's just accounting entries taking place on both sides and instructions are being transferred. Why am I trying to draw this very important significance to you? Because I don't want you to ever get thrown off when somebody tries to prejudice your right to discharge a debt by saying you have to pay with a check or a money order. Just understand a check and a money order can accomplish the same thing that a Fed wire can accomplish, the same thing that an A4V can accomplish, because they're all just different ways of sending instructions. It's like I can tell you to discharge the debt by the telephone. I can send you something in the mail. I can do Morse code. All of these different ways still can tell you the from account and the to account and all of these different things. So all of that being said, I want to show you how I set up this discharge process. So first thing we did is we had to get an asset on the books so that we can negotiate it in commerce, right? Dollar for dollar. You cannot demand any particular coin or currency. That goes into HJR 192, Public Law 7310, 12 USC 95A2, the obligation of the United States Treasury to discharge public debts dollar for dollar, right? All of that being said, you don't see that on the UCC. Where is that? That's in the letter of instruction. That is behind the UCC. The letter of instruction is going to be consistent with the check, which is another form of instructions. It's going to be consistent with what's written right here on the UCC3 assignment, which is also a notice, and it can have some instructions on it also. But this is a notice giving notice that instructions about an assignment were given, basically. So I'm going to show you how the check, the UCC3, and your banker's endorsement are all the same thing and should be tendered in the same package. But now here's one thing about the check, and this is one thing about your thinking and how you should approach all things. Everything is an obstacle that can be resolved. It used to be a hang-up when, they say you got to pay with a check or a money order. A check or a money order can be a cash item or a non-cash item. Let me show you something real quick. I'm going to show you one of my instruments here. Again, this is kind of confidential, but a lot of you guys have been sharing great things with me, so I'm sharing with you. And I'm really doing this. I'm, to some degree, obviously, I'm putting myself through a little bit of risk here. So I expect you guys to be aware of that. You know what I'm saying? Share the good stuff that you have. I'm sharing the good stuff that I got, right? I'm doing it for you guys because you guys assist with THC Trust over here. So what you see here, I just want to show you some things about instruments if you guys are doing instruments. One thing I say is countersign, right? I'm obviously already operating in trust. If you've noticed the UCCs, I've already put that on the record. I have the trust registration statement there showing that I'm operating in the capacity as the trustee. I've even said, now remember I told you I have a trust indenture too. That trust indenture is in a master file. I took that trust indenture, I set up a bank account. And when they're going through the bank account and they're setting up this stuff, they start asking you questions as a trustee. They start making suggestions. When they make suggestions, hit them back. They ask you a question and say, what is the purpose of this account? Is it for such and such? Say no. Tell me what the options are. And you'll start learning different things in that capacity. But I mentioned that to tell you that this particular account is set up for me to discharge to convert securities and disperse securities to discharge debts for the grantor or beneficiary. So since we're signing in trust and we're operating in trust, one thing I always say if you're going to do private instruments, countersign. Why do you countersign? Well, because by the way, this is a copy of an instrument. So I can't put copy on here. This is a copy of an instrument. This is all for entertainment purposes only. But first thing you just want to do is countersign, because what happens is in the blind trust, everything that you sign, it needs to be countersigned to be negotiated. So what happens is some trustee behind the scene gets that paperwork that you thought was for one reason, and he countersigns it and negotiates it to the Treasury or to some other bank or intermediary, and commerce begins on that. It's the negotiation of your signature. So we countersign it and we put everything on the UCC. See this file number? This instrument is recorded behind this UCC. All this other stuff, loan number, final payment, RE number, that's the registered mail number under which they'll get the presentment and all this. This is important. A couple of things that I'm going to say is very important. Very important. You must, if you're going to do private instruments, they must only go to an officer, a fiscal agent, a CFO, a director, an officer, and not someone in the public. And if for whatever reason you think the circumstances could result where your instrument can get spilled in the public just because of whatever the circumstance, then in that case I would write void where prohibited by law on here. Otherwise I wouldn't write that. And if you put it in the proper person's hands, you really don't have to worry about this. By the way, this is confidential, and this is intellectual property that belongs to the estate, so that's why I'm using this. But one of the important things I want you to understand, and you should read Operating Circular 7, I believe, Operating Circular 3, and Regulation J, and you want to kind of get an understanding of the non-cash item. Non-cash items, which are basically items that are not going to just be processed right off of this microcode with no additional instructions necessary. Those can't, non-cash items are not to be sent to these general processing centers. I think that's either Regulation 7 or Operating Circular 7, I believe, talks about that. These non-cash items, therefore, have to be sent to certain places. CFOs, fiscal agents, treasury officers, from my research, can get those, and I think there's probably other places, but I really don't even really care to either. I'm going to do this with the CFO or I'm going to do it directly with the Treasury. But these are just different things you can look at. There's other ways to do this, other remedies. I'm just showing you what I did. This routing number right here, Treasury, New York. You can read in the Treasury Financial Manual and a bunch of other different federal regulations that commercial paper that needs to get Fed wired or negotiated to the Treasury. Remember I said there's all these different ways to send it, uses this routing number. That still doesn't mean that this is, it has to go get sent to New York. So that's why the routing number is there, because that routes it to the Federal Reserve Bank, New York, which is there But of course, they don't. They get it directly through the fiscal agent, the CFO, um, which you see right here. Where's the letter of instructions? So this letter of instructions, we're appointing him as what? We're appointing him as the paying agent. Where do I get the paying agent from? You got to go back to those lectures I did on the trust model standard indenture. The paying agent is something that I learned is the person who's supposed to be paying the debts for the trade name of the company or the corporation or whatever. I think it's a position that they have you in by default, and you haven't appointed a paying agent. That's how your company keeps going into default. So we appoint the CFO as the paying agent because he has all the tools, the credentials, and the access to access these treasury investment programs and systems and to negotiate our commercial paper, because again, he has the relationship with the Securities Exchange Commission and the obligations. He has all the obligations and all the connections with the treasury programs, the IRS stuff, all of that. That's what the CFOs get paid all the money for. So we appoint him as that. We appoint him as the transfer agent. I wanted to get into the transfer agent under 17, or I want to say 17. I don't know. But anyways, I got all these statutes. Let's pull it up real quick. We'll pull it up real quick. I got some research here on the transfer agents. We're just gonna pull it up real quick because you at least know where you would know where to look for some of the research. Okay, here we are. 17 CFR. See, I was on it. No, Rule 17 AD-15C. These are notes that deal with the transfer agents and things like that, and private securities. What we're talking about with the UCC. All of this is what I'm talking about. This is some deep research on that subject. I'm going to make this whole file where you can read about medallion stamps, signature guarantees, transfer agents, what it means when you put one on a form, what they're required to do, how they're required to respond to you in the timelines, like the 48 hours notices when they receive that. Yes, they talk about this. That's medallion stamp stuff right there, and transfer agents and things like that. And it deals with Regulation D, private securities, and things like that. There's a lot of good things in there that I can't really go into right now, but that's where your transfer agent things go. This is a different hat. CFO is going to be the paying agent, the transfer agent, and the disbursement official. Why is he the disbursement official? Because he's going to receive 1099 information. Remember, we want him to do two things here, and this is what I want to suggest with the CFO process. Something that I learned going forward. Look back at the other video where I did the call for the redemption of the note. You want to call for the redemption of the note because you became aware, you've claimed title, maybe you used the W-8 affidavit of beneficial ownership. The W-8 is a certificate for the equity purposes, verifying that you're the beneficial ownership of the account, the loan account, and maybe the note account and the mortgage account if there's a different number associated with the mortgage. So you put your claim of ownership on all of that, you title it, and then at the same time that you call for the redemption, where you're letting that's at the same time where you want to discharge, because you're going to ask for that principal, that par value, get that principal in that note and credit it against the outstanding liability, and you should be due some funds back. Now, how can you do this and get the funds back? That's a lot of advanced study. I can give you some different directions. You can run your 1041 tax return on the estate trust, because, by the way, you should already know that these UCCs that I'm showing you here, right? These trusts, this trust right here should have its own tax ID number. And the responsible party for this living trust, or whatever type of trust it is, would be the Social Security number. But you will have your own tax ID number, and that's when I was talking about how can you actually get the return back, right? You can do it if you understand how to do your 1041s, and you can get the return back that way, and you could probably force the issue some other ways too. But at the end of the day, these are all tax matters and settlements. So let's just go back to the discharge process real quick, because I want to close this out. Just let you get a glimpse of how I do things. Not saying you have to do this. But remember, we're dealing with public debt, so we got the UCC. Who's the assigner, right? Remember, this is basically the payee on this instrument. This is like a check. So we paid to the order of PNC Bank National Association. This is really who we're assigning it to. Let's read the assignment statement. Well, first let's go back here and let me show you this. A UCC3, this is real simple stuff, right? The first UCC that I showed you in the other video was the registration of the security entitlement on the interest. That was the creation of the asset on your private books. This is that original financing statement right here. So that's like, this is the original deposit in your bank account. When you get ready to send it out, you do it via assignment. That's like writing a check. You're assigning it. Who are you assigning it to? That's the payee party, the person entitled to receive that assignment. You put him down here, right? This is on a UCC3. Or read the instructions. You know what I'm saying? This is just this particular UCC3. Sometimes they're different. And this gives him all the rights in this record, which is actually an electronic security. Remember, if you looked at the first UCC1, I had those chattel paper and statutes there showing what that is. So basically what I'm telling you is this account is just as good as a bank account. And the same way you can write a check out for your bank account is the same way this UCC3 is assignment is a check off of here. But you will also include a check to meet their obligations when they say you got to pay with a check or money order, and that's a non-cash item. Make sure you put a non-cash item so you're operating clearly and true. You're not trying to create no fraudulent instruments. You're making the intention very clear. If you read my instrument down here, I don't know if you can see it, it says that it's a non-cash item for settlement. Let's see, non-cash item for settlement, adjustment, and closing of account number, the loan number, and it references the Georgia UCC filing numbers and the public laws that are relevant. You know, the 48 Stat 112 and everything else that's relevant. Once again, I told you about the number, why we use the number, and we'll go down to this. This is the securities transfer form, which, by the way, this is check stock. It's attached to a securities transfer form, which says for value. And where is they transferring the security from, right? The county, who's also a participant, a guarantor. Remember, they have an account there. They're doing banking at the county. You record it. You made a deposit there. You deposited an instrument on the county books. You put your affidavit of title on it. Now you're transferring it. So on the securities transfer form, that is signature guaranteed. For value received, the undersigned hereby sells, assigns, and transfers to the assigner. You got the registered mail number in here because this is a security. You put the, oh, that's the tax ID number. But look, don't be all in our stuff, yo. Anyways, you got an idea how that's done. Listen, another thing is important. On the back, how we endorse things for special deposit, paid to the order of the United States Treasury without recourse. Anyways, this is my confidential stuff, y'all, but I really want to share it with you because let me tell you, things have been really great for TAT Trust members, and I'm telling you, you got to exercise some competency. We just had one of our members, he's getting returns well over $1 million, and he's using the same fundamentals that we're using in the master file. You have to be set up properly. That means your trust and your UCC using the trust registration statements and things of the such. As I've been maintaining from the beginning, we have probably the most thorough secure party recording process out there. It's not just me, it's other people looking in on it, and it's not done. You know, we're still fine-tuning it, and we're asking you to be patient. But if you want to learn and you want to follow along, I suggest you get in right now because it is going up to $200. Right now, the donation is $150, and you have access to it, even as the updates and changes and things go in. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. Let me see what else I need to say about this. Okay, so, but anyways, we was going through here. These are the authorities right here. Now, I know if you're a member, you're going to have access to this in a Word document. You know, if you're one of the, you know, when you access this under the premium subscription section, you'll have access to this, and you can go look up all these public laws, the federal statutes at large. They're also written in the U.S. codes, but we like to use the federal statutes at large because those are constitutional, at least more so than the other codes and everything else, because uh, the federal statutes at large are the result of what was enacted into positive law by Congress and the House of Representatives in a way that things were set out in the Constitution. So this was a simple like payment instructions. There's something missing here, it looks like, but I guess it's not. Let's see. So anyway, there you have it. Now, let's go into look at something real quick. Now, we already know, I can't really overdo it. You got to go, I mean, I can't go over these lessons again. I hope you guys are understand enough about administrative procedure and accepted for value to understand why CFOs, and I was talking before about their position in the government and in the corporation about why they can't deny your presentments, and even why. Like, let me prove to you what I'm talking about real quickly, just so you guys know, for real. I'm going to tell you this is the extent of how real things get when you're trying to discharge debts here. So, and because of these things are still ongoing. Now, like, let's take this here. We got to go look at the UCC 3 here. So we're going to go look at the UCC 3. Remember, when you're dealing with securities, how do you send them? Registered mail, restricted delivery. And I suggest that you absolutely should insure. And I'm going to tell you how you do that real quick. There's simply one way to insure your registered securities, and that is you declare the actual value of what they are on the actual registered mail form. By declaring the value, you don't have to buy any additional insurance. It is getting insured. So that is how you insure them. Don't let them put 0, and then you'll get the insurance on the instrument. Now, if you notice here, I'm going to show you something. Obviously, I don't make rookie mistakes. You'll see a certain bank named here, and you'll see a certain address. This address is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Obviously, that's where this registered security was mailed to. Now check this out here. I'm going to show you something here. Follow along with me. So if I was going to track this number, right, go to USPS.com, and I put this number in here, and I'm going to show you something really interesting here. It shows that it was delivered. But where does it show that it was delivered? It shows that it was delivered to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, right? That's not where I sent this. Obviously, I sent it to Pennsylvania, right? They show that it departed the post office in Burlington, North Dakota. Anybody who's ever used registered mail knows that it shows every stop. It shows where it's picked up and everything. They don't show any of that. They say it was accepted in Burlington, North Dakota. That's just simply not the case. It's not true. And watch this. I'm going to show you that it's not true. Show you something real quick. Look at here real quick. Well, we'll just do it like this. This is an email that I got from the Postal Service. Okay. Notice here, this is the same number if you can read it. We're just going to make this real quick. It says, this is to serve as a formal notification to you that the internal USPS records and imaging show that your package, and they put the same number here, was received and signed for by PNC Bank in Pittsburgh at whatever, right? So that's the same number, and it shows, look at the date that it was signed for, 3/27/17. So what I'm showing you is that was addressed to the chief financial officer of an organization. This is why when you type the number in, right? And here's the number right here. Don't get it twisted. This is the number up here, right? It shows that it was just like nowhere near the truth because, and I had to pull strings to get to that letter that I just showed you. So I want to show you, kind of give you an idea what you're up against, why it takes competency, and why you can't just be looking for a silver bullet remedy, and you have to know what's going on. They say you need a check and a money order. That's to throw you off. Give them a non-cash item, check or money order for settlement and adjustment with proper instructions. All instruments need to be endorsed paid to the order of the United States Treasury for special deposit, at least on the back. So then, once you put these instruments, financial assets, securities, and obligations of the Treasury in the hands of a CFO or a fiscal agent, they're required to do things with them. Then you have the W-8 certificate of beneficial interest and foreign status and ownership, which deals with equity and accounts and things like that. Do your own research. 1099s. 1099s. We're not going to go into my understanding of them. You can have a private coaching session with me, and I'll tell you my opinions for entertainment purposes only. But 1099-R is for distributions. Now, redemptions or 1099-R, yeah, is for distribution. And I would say redemption, really. They say distribution, but I say it's 1099-R for redemption. Because when you redeem something, you distribute it. You convert it into something else. So we are redeeming our assets as makers under UCC 3, whatever. We're maker issuer. We're redeeming those assets and having them dispersed and to pay out the underlying obligation. Notice that right. Okay, this is important too. This is very important. Look at this coupon here. We'll talk about these coupons real quick. Every time you submit a check or a money order, you're supposed to include a coupon. This is kind of like almost an internal mechanism to keep the employees probably from defrauding the company, stealing your payment, because the coupons are supposed to be inputted also. But neither here nor there. Make sure you fill this out. And this, one of these type of papers, just like a 1040-V, has to be accompanied by a real deal security, from my understanding. So what's going to make something a real deal security? Either has to have security features in the paper, maybe bond paper, or maybe even a medallion stamp signature guarantee. Also securitizes a thing. So, there you have it. This was also created. This form is available. And I'm going to have to leave it at that, folks. I'm tired. I hope you got something out of this. Oh, yeah, that's all I can really say right now. I'm available for coaching sessions. This is not a silver bullet remedy. This is based on research. Use the templates, build to it, share.